Which of these week 2 games is going to teach us the most about ACC football this season? NC State versus Tennessee, Georgia Tech at Syracuse, or Cal at Auburn?
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday, and thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. To the everydayers, we love you. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So on this episode, we're going to talk about what I think are the 3 most important ACC games this weekend, including some head-to-heads with the SEC. Cal, who are big underdogs against Auburn. They actually gave them a close game in Northern California last year. Whether they can do the same this year, I don't know. You've got an in-conference matchup between Georgia Tech and Syracuse, and one that is near and dear to Kenton's heart this weekend. You've got NC State taking on the Tennessee Volunteers. So Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack, which of those 3 games do you think is going to teach us most about the conference this week?
Yes. Yeah, I know that's a very non-committal answer, but all of these games are equally important for different reasons, right? It's like if somebody asked you, Donno, which one is most important in terms of your son growing up, right? That he be a productive member of society, that he doesn't hurt or harm other people, that he's an honest man. You're like, all three of those things are very important and for equal but different reasons, right? NC State to Tennessee, number one, the conference cachet nationally. That game has to, at minimum, be competitive. And internally, in terms of the conference, inside, and you're thinking about what NC State is ready for, is not prepared for in conference, you're looking at a situation where, again, they have to be competitive, potentially win to show that this is not the same old NC State. If you believe in that team to have an opportunity to win an ACC championship, they have to show up and do good things. Georgia Tech and Q's, what is Georgia Tech? Are they for real? Because there were some moments against Georgia State where you're like, they don't have this thing fully under control. What's going on here? And so you're asking yourself, like, now that everybody said, all right, the price of the brick has plummeted with Florida State. The price of that first win, it's just through the roof down. Or not through the roof, but through the basement down. You're now asking yourself, well, what is Georgia Tech and who is Syracuse? Because we saw Syracuse struggle against an Ohio team, the mighty Bobcats of Ohio University, and you're asking yourself there. And then Cal and Auburn, same thing. Is Cal ready? Did they just catch Auburn off of a down period last year when they were coming into Northern California? Are they ready to actually hang with Auburn? And again, nationally, can the conference compete? All of that is to be seen, and all of it is important. All of it matters to the conference, in my opinion.
I'll rank mine in order. I'll give you my power rankings of the importance of each of these games. So I'm going to put Cal and Auburn as number 3. And a big part of my reasoning for that is, like, a lot of people probably don't even realize Cal is in the ACC. Like,
not yet, at least.
I feel like if you're just a casual college football fan, you're like, wait, they're in the Atlantic Coast Conference now. And also, I know if our guy Lawrence Ross is listening to this, he may not like to hear this, but obviously, like, Cal, nobody had them as a contender this year, or it's an interesting team. You and I are both huge fans of Jaden Ott as one of the more exciting running backs in the entire country. But, I know that this game is extra interesting for a couple of reasons. Cal made it close in a really ugly game last year in Cal. Jaden Ott last year, not this year, but last year, he gave Auburn some bulletin board material saying that, like, hey, like, their film does not match, like, their reputation, which got Auburn people all fired up, but they haven't forgotten about that a year later. So it's an interesting game, but I don't really feel like, even if Auburn were to destroy Cal, I don't really feel like anyone would come out of that and say that's a blemish on the ACC. I don't think so.
You're absolutely right. Nobody would look at that and say, oh, the ACC is terrible because of Cal.
So that's why that one's my number 3. My number 2, And I think that this is closer to number 1 than number 3 is to number 2. I'll go Georgia Tech at Syracuse because this is going to go a long way to kind of identifying a team that could maybe play spoiler and be a dark horse. We were talking about dark horses in our most recent episode. So, to me, Syracuse, and they're going to have to be without one of their top defensive players, Marlowe Wax, for around 6 weeks. So that's going to hurt with Wax being injured. But I know you talked about them having some not so good moments against Ohio. Kyle McCord put up big numbers against Ohio, over 350 passing yards. Can he do anything like that against Georgia Tech? Not that I expect him to go for 350. And Aronde Gadsden II is one of the more exciting playmakers in the country. And then for Georgia Tech, like you said, some not so great moments against Georgia State, but the signature win against Florida State to start the season. Can they keep rolling? So I think this is an important game to identify, like, which one of these teams can be a spoiler, or whoever loses this game you look at as kind of like a team that's going to be mid-tier ACC for the rest of the season. So I think that's important. Conference game, we haven't had enough of those early on this year. But to me, I would say the most important is the game that you and I, especially you, are going to take a deep dive on later in this episode, and that's NC State versus Tennessee. Because I feel like this one is for the glory of the Atlantic Coast Conference. I've noticed something that's happening with the gambling trends for this game. This game, it opened with Tennessee only about a 4-point favorite. I saw that number grow to Tennessee around an 8-point favorite, and now I'm looking at the Volunteers, according to the sports books, being around a 10-point favorite in this football game, which doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it means there's a lot of money pouring in on Tennessee. Is that just the Tennessee alumni and boosters just getting excited about their team, or do those sharps in love? We talked about them for that Georgia Tech Florida State game where the sharps were putting money on Georgia Tech. Does that mean they know something that the rest of us don't? But I look at this as, a Tennessee Volunteers team that's expected to be good in a very deep SEC, and an NC State team that is expected by you and me. You picked them to win the conference. I picked them to be very close. I think I had NC State, number 3. Certainly Florida State has dropped several rungs for me now. So I've got NC State like right there near the top, and they didn't look that great against Western Carolina to open up the season until they really turned it on in the fourth quarter. So this is an opportunity for an upper echelon ACC team.
Yeah.
Something against an upper echelon SEC team. And like you said, Kenton, I think we both hope NC State pulls off the upset, but even if they don't, keep it competitive, give America an exciting football game to watch. And if you make Tennessee really have to earn that victory rather than win it by double digits, then I think that's going to make the ACC look pretty good. So I've got that one for me. That's first in my power ranking, NC State versus Tennessee, because it's a big opportunity.
Absolutely. Not only is it a big opportunity, it is, as the Migos would say, big on big. What does that mean? You've got two teams that are supposed to be good in their respective conferences, and now it's not. When you think about Georgia and Clemson, you give the ACC a little grace because you're like, Georgia does that to most SEC teams. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
That's just a fact, right? So then you say, well, who's the next comparable team? Who's the next team down the line that you say, we have a game, our team against their team, supposedly same level. This is the next one up. So if NC State gets the wheels whooped off of them in Charlotte, then we know something about the ACC as a whole, or at least that's the narrative that will be spun. That's just what's going on here. And I'm going to tell you something. In terms of do the Sharps know something or anything like that, Tennessee has very clear advantages on many, many places in this game. That cannot be denied. They have advantages in the trenches, specifically defensively. I have never seen a team change multiple lines, 3 lines like it's hockey. Hey, first line guys, go out there. Second line guys, go out there. Shift change. Get my right winger off the ice.
Hold on. If you don't mind, I want to cut you off right there because I want to take the deep dive on these matchups.
Yeah. We're going to take the deep dive, but what I just want to make it clear. The Sharps are not getting this from nowhere. They're getting it from Tennessee's advantages, which are traditionally where you win the games. But Donno and I are going to explore how some of those advantages may not be as big as some people believe they are.
And we're going to do that, and we're going to have fun doing it. And folks, we're only getting started. We've got 3 big games to talk about, plus a very questionable decision by Florida State University. I don't know why they're actively trying to take away one of their home field advantages. This is very strange. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. And folks, we're only getting started with LinkedIn. There are going to be some more coaches' profiles created, I think. I know Billy Napier has his profile redone, open to work, the tag being on the bottom. And when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for that role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thank you for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. For your next listen, make sure you check out the other shows that Kenton and I do. Kenton does an awesome job on Locked On Wolfpack. I host Locked On Canes. And KG, I know you guys had a crossover this week with Locked On Vols. So getting everybody ready for that big showdown between the Tennessee Volunteers and the NC State Wolfpack. And so, okay, you talked about a lot of disadvantages for NC State in this matchup. Before you help me break those down, let's break down the advantage I think NC State has and can hopefully milk in this matchup. And that's KC Concepcion, especially, and NC State's weapons in the passing game against Tennessee's defensive secondary. Because it's like, for as much as that roster has changed, they can't seem to fix that over the years. And so if Grayson McCall can have a really sharp outing, and if Concepcion can play the way he played all last season as a true freshman, and the way he did play for as underwhelming as that Western Carolina game might have been, not KC, 121 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns. How big of an advantage do you think that's going to be for NC State?
Let me ask you a question, Donno. Who was the leading receiver that wasn't a tight end at UConn last year? Give me a guess. Do you know?
No.
Exactly. Donno is stumped. Let me tell you why that's important. Donno is a knower of ball, and yet he does not know who the leading receiver that wasn't tight end was at UConn. Justin Jolie tore Tennessee up last year.
Yes. I should have known that.
Tore those boys up last year. And you know what he didn't have on his team at that time? A Kevin Concepcion next to him. A Noah Rogers on one side. A Dakari Collins on the other side. A Wesley Grimes coming out there. A Terrell Anderson with him. He didn't have those things. And I'll tell you, Keenan Jackson is a freshman that, again, when I saw his tape, I said, oh, the rest of the country has undervalued this young man because he was as polished of a receiver as I have seen coming out of high school in quite some time. That wasn't a consensus 5-star. I watched him play, and I'm just like, he just knows. He feels the game in a special way. But I'm saying that to say you've got a Juice Marine as well. So I say this to say the pass catchers from NC State against that secondary and linebacker core, they have such an advantage there.
Yeah.
Such an advantage. It comes down to 2 things for me. Can you keep Grayson McCall upright? And can you at least contain Tennessee offensively? When you're on defense, can you contain them? Because I don't think that you're going to outright stop them, but can you contain them? Because that pass catching group, I think guys are going to be running wide open all night long. Now, will they have the time to hit him or to hit them is the question. You talk about KC, very special after the catch. We all know what he can do. Bonafide baller, bonafide stud. There's no question what KC can do. Justin Jolie, tackle breaking this tight end in the nation, and he showed why last game. He hit one of those DBs with a move. I said, oh, Hold on now. Hold on. My Achilles is they surgically repaired, but they ain't not repaired, Justin. You got to relax. You got to calm down. So ultimately, I look at this game and I say to myself, this is an area I know NC State's going to win. I have no doubt in my mind NC State's going to win this area. The only problem is you need to keep your quarterback upright to get to this win. And your quarterback, while he's upright, you got to shake that rust off, brother. You got to knock it off. Get whatever you got to do, okay? Do whatever treatment you need to do to fully get back into that mode, get back into that zone. I know the saying is nothing prepares you for football like playing football. When you got 1 week out the way, big time, it's time for you to step up and walk into excellence and brilliance, Grayson McCall. Because if you do that, not only will this game be close, NC State will win it.
Yeah, and then the other part about like keeping McCall upright that's a little concerning, it's going to be very hard for NC State to establish a running game because Tennessee does that well. They stop the run very well.
I agree.
Do you kind of have to use the short passing game as your running back to try to keep the defense honest?
Absolutely. You have to, for this reason. You have so many guys that I think terrify any defensive backfield, but especially one like Tennessee. I look at this game and I'm not going to sit here and say Jordan Waters has to rush for 100 yards or they're cooked. It's not going to happen. That's something that I don't see a world where it happens. Smothers out of the backfield, however, he can catch 400. I think it's possible. Because, again, if you use that quick passing game, you use those swing passes, you use those kind of snag concepts, things like that as your de facto running game, I think that you can give this team fits. You can give them headaches. But if you go with this, we're going to be balanced, meaning half run and half pass. Tennessee's going to have a good time. They're going to be partying on Old Rocky Top. You know what I mean? It's going to be a very tough time for NC State. So I believe that they can keep this game close and potentially win via using their quick passing game. And on top of that, there's another thing. I talked about KC being a monster after the catch. I talked about Justin Jolie being a monster after the catch. But NC State's wide receiving core has a ton of speed that people really don't talk about in the way that you do some others. Wesley Grimes is a big play waiting to happen. Noah Rogers he's that guy that has a little bit of everything in his game. And he was an All-American for a reason coming out of high school and going up to Ohio State. So I look at this situation and I say to myself, it's not just they're going to get open vertically and all that. If you can just get the ball in your playmakers' hands on the perimeter, because, yes, Tennessee does rotate in defensive linemen. They change defensive line rotations like we change radio stations. But when you make those defensive linemen go chase down a bubble screen, when you make those defensive linemen are they dragging across the field again? When you make those defensive linemen have to get to the perimeter, all of a sudden, it don't matter how many guys you got. Big men can only run fast for so long.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you got to try to keep James Pierce as quiet as you possibly can. And anytime I look at a big underdog in college football, always one of my go-tos is you've got to win the turnover margin. Yes. You've got to hope. And of course, Nico and that Tennessee offense, they can and they will put up points. But if you can force a couple of turnovers, and I'm wondering your take, Kenton, because you're pretty bullish on NC State being able to have success through the air. I think we both agree Tennessee's going to have some success on the offensive side. The over-under for this one is pretty high at 60.5. It's high for a reason. In fact, I don't see another game involving top 25 teams that's higher than 60.5. Do you think we could see an over on FanDuel?
Take the over. Over. I'm 1,000% taking the over here. I believe that this game will be close, but I also believe Tennessee will win it. I'll give you, I really do think that this Tennessee team is very special. Again, I've talked about James Pierce and all that he is, but they've got multiple guys on that defensive line that are dudes. They've got multiple guys, including Jones and company, that are there. He's the star of the show. But this is much more of a. I'll just say that this isn't a Gladys Knight and the Pips situation. This is multiple guys who are all in their own right.
Well, it's more like the Beatles,
Exactly. Much more like the Beatles than or like Queen than anything else because you've got multiple guys in here that are very, very special players. So their defensive line, I really do think that at some point in time, you're going to have to at least try them. And I think that you're going to find out very quickly, oh, they're not pliable. They're as good as they are on tape for a reason. And I think that Nico and company will do their thing. But I think NC State's defense will do a decent job of, again, containing them, keeping things in front of them, forcing a turnover here or there to keep it close. But I think that Grayson McCall's rush shows in just a prime moment where it can't, and Tennessee walks away with a tight one.
All right, so hopefully NC State can keep it close or win. Can Cal hang with Auburn? And what's going to happen between Georgia Tech and Syracuse? You want to keep it locked right here, my friends. We're not done on this brand new Friday episode of Locked On ACC. Guys, if you're looking for last-minute tickets for all the games this weekend, concerts, musical theater, comedy shows, I highly recommend Game Time. The Game Time app. Folks, I have gotten so many amazing tickets, sometimes day of, even hours before an event starts, and the prices go down the closer you get to the event. It really is a beautiful thing. And by the way, Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. By the way, folks, there so many wonderful things you can get on Game Time, including panoramic views from your seat before you buy. This one, especially going to concerts, hot tip, that's a game changer because you're going to know your angle from the stage, exactly what you're going to be looking at, where you're going to be looking at it from. Folks, the Game Time guarantee means if you find a ticket in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. We're going to have another Game Time coming up this weekend, several of them inside the ACC. You know, so Kenton, I did a spot earlier this week on Locked On Auburn, representing Cal, to talk a little bit about the Golden Bears and what they may have for the Auburn Tigers this weekend. Now, looks like Jaden Ott is going to go, but he did get banged up last week. You know, if he's limited or is a late scratch, then the Golden Bears are especially cooked. But I think, to me, and I know we try not to overreact to week one. You know, Auburn looked very good in their first game of the season against lesser opposition. Cal not as much. Do you think the Golden Bears can turn it on? And this is not even an ACC game yet, and they're already traveling across the country. They're going to do a lot of that this year. Do you think Cal can keep this one close as they did last year and maybe put themselves in position to score a big upset?
If it wasn't for last year, I would say Cal pulls off the upset here. I would say that they're in prime position to pull off the upset. However, Auburn's going to have their antennas up. They know that they ended last season in embarrassing fashion. Having your fans in Jordan Hare see you get mollywopped by New Mexico State, and then you have Bama on the ropes. You have them all but dead. I mean, there was slow singing and flower bringing on Nick Saban's grave, but all of a sudden you snatch defeat from the jaws of victory in a way that we have rarely seen done. They have to come out and be in a better place for this one, and I think they will be. I honestly and truly believe that Auburn takes care of Cal. You know, Lawrence is our guy. And we're not going to have them on after this whooping. We're not going to have them on and say, ha, we told you so. But I don't think things go well for Cal in this one.
All right, so how about this in-conference matchup? Georgia Tech, they're 23rd ranking. They're ranked 23 in the AP. That obviously has a lot to do with what they did in Dublin week 0 against the Florida State team. It's not nearly as good as we thought that they were. They're going to be on the road at Syracuse, and Georgia Tech, they are 3-point road favorites. Syracuse, they had good and bad moments against Ohio in their opening game, but Kyle McCord did put up big numbers in that one. I kind of wonder now if maybe we don't feel quite as good about Georgia Tech as we did a week and a half ago. Syracuse at home in the Dome. Can they pull off the mild upset?
Let me tell you something. Georgia Tech may not have looked great last week, but neither did Syracuse. Georgia Tech not only wins, they cover. They're winning and they're covering. And I'm not a betting man. I'm not the bettor on this show.
Well, then
we all
I will take your bet then to the bank.
We all know that I'm not the bettor on this. I'm the type of guy go to Vegas, lose $5 and get mad. Don't nobody talk to me. Don't nobody talk to me for the rest of the trip. That's me. But I'm telling you right now, I think that Georgia Tech, in terms of their ability to run the ball, and you're running into a defense whose heart and soul is gone, who is not only their heart and soul emotionally, he's the middle of that defense. He's the Mike. He's the middle linebacker. He's the guy, the green dot guy that communicates the defense to everybody. Yeah, I don't see a world in which, Syracuse can overcome that loss in 1 week. I just don't.
That's well said. All right, so I want to cover this as well. We'll go. I was going to say this is an off the field story, but it really is an on the field story as well. So, okay, this was because people were wondering, like, well, what was up with the marching Chiefs, the Florida State Seminoles band? And I will say this, obviously, I am an alumnus and I cover a school that is a rival with Florida State, the Miami Hurricanes. And anytime you go to a game involving Florida State as an opposing fan, that Seminole war chant, it drives you crazy. It drives you crazy. And I feel like it does that to opposing players as well. I feel like that, like that's a big part of Florida State's home field advantage. And the Marching Chiefs put out this statement because people weren't hearing it as much. The Marching Chiefs is the Florida State band. The Marching Chiefs and the athletic department have enjoyed a relationship of mutual respect for decades. We regularly meet with our colleagues in athletics to discuss all aspects of the game day experience. Our mutual goal, as always has been, is to help the team on the field and provide the best environment in college football for the fans. This continues to this day. The Marching Chiefs agreed in 2023 with the football team's request to introduce new music during third down. We believe this was a reasonable request. We take pride in our role in the game day experience, one that Seminole fans have come to expect. We will continue to work in partnership with athletics to find ways to improve the game day experience. We encourage everyone to continue to support Coach Norvell and the football team. Go Noles. So they're playing like DJ music now on a lot of these opposing third downs, or they're like running promos in the stadium. Instead, like you're about to line up, the opposing offense is about to line up for a third down play. Nothing will take you more out of your game than that annoying war chant. And now they're not doing it every time. And Florida State fans, rightfully so, are reacting very negatively to this, that they're no longer doing this with the war chant. And it's like, honestly, what kind of decisions are being made there?
When you said, can Florida State just can't stop making the bad decisions, I'm thinking, did they sue somebody else? Are they looking for a way to get DJ another year of eligibility? What's going on here? What's the problem? And when it turns out that it's the band no longer playing their vaunted third down music, I don't think people realize it's something in that it gets in your psyche. It gets in your head in this very subtle way that you just keep hearing it over and over and over again. Even if you didn't play, even if you were just in the stadium on that day, you rode the bench, your team won, lost, indifferent. Especially if you're good, if they're good and your team lost, you will remember that. You remember it. It's etched in there. It works on you for the next year. Or not the next year, but the year after that, if you're in the ACC and you alternate, all that good stuff. But the reality is, it means something. To take that away is just foolishness. It's really. And my question is, what did you gain from it? That's always my question when decisions like this are made, right? At least with the lawsuits, I can say there's a lot to tangibly gain from this. Sure. What did you gain from removing your vaunted third down music?
Yeah. I can't answer that. And I'm already seeing thousands of fans have signed a petition for more marching Chiefs music at football games. So it's just like I don't know if this is one, like, is this a publicity stunt? Like you're too young. You maybe have heard about it, but you're too young to remember the new Coke. You know, when Coca-Cola when Coca-Cola, like in the late 80s at some point, they're just like, we're changing our formula. Right? And you know, I don't like, I was too young to remember what the new Coke tastes. I don't even think I drank soda back then, but I remember the new Coke. I remember everyone being outraged. And then a few months later, we're going back and it's Coca-Cola Classic. Now we're going back to the original form, and everyone loved it. And Coke's like stock prices went through the roof. I don't know if Florida State is now like, hey, let's tell people we're taking the marching Chiefs away. And now all these petitions, I don't know. I'm probably overthinking this, but yeah.
I'll tell you what, it'll distract them from the on-field product right now. It'll distract them from the on-field product. You know, when you get fans talking about something besides the fact that your quarterback can't hit the broadside of a barn and that your offensive line would get bullied by a powder puff team at their respective high schools, you know, I think that you've got bigger problems to worry about than the third down music, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's true. Well, folks, it's been a fun week here on Locked On ACC. I can't wait to talk about all the games that are happening this weekend. You know, there are obviously other games we didn't get to. There are, you know, a lot of ACC teams going up against lesser opposition this week. So we'll break everything down on Monday. He's Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. I am Alex Donno from Locked On Canes. We'll talk to you guys next time on another episode of Locked On ACC, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.